Hey guys, what's happening? I'll tell you what's happening. This banging new backdrop. Is this awesome or what? It's so soft and shiny and burgundy. It's so pretty. Okay, well, maybe whether or not it's pretty is up for grabs, but it's better than a white wall and a closet door, right? I think it's an improvement. I think it's beautiful. And on that note, let's talk a bit about beauty today. I'm like a week or two behind on this, so sorry about that. I did this 3-part series on my experiences coming out earlier this month, and that shit was intense. Like, it took me literally an entire week plus a few days to get it all done. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go do it. Anyway, yeah, it definitely set me behind a bit on schedule, but we'll catch up. Maybe. So, a few weeks ago, I was scrolling through my Facebook feed, like I do, and I happened across this article about people calling Ann Coulter transgender as an insult, and then her responding that she basically is going to, sue everyone doing it. Apparently this is something that happened a while back, but I'm just now hearing about it for whatever reason. Okay, I don't think this comes as a huge surprise to anyone, but I'm not a huge fan of hers. At all. I mean, she's kind of a misogynist right-wing blowhard and all that, and I'm kind of a feminist super far left-wing blowhard. So obviously, I've had beef with her pretty much since the dawn of time, and it's really not all that surprising to see this kind of trans-misogynist bullshit flying out of her mouth. But she's not the only person I've got beef with over this. Those asshats using transness as an insult are on my list too. No, bad. I mean, I get your theory. She's a transphobic dipshit. It's like calling a homophobic dipshit a closeted gay person. I get it, you're trying to get under her skin. But there's a couple of problems with the way you're doing it. First off, you want to attack someone? Attack their politics, not their appearance. Ever. You're better than that. Second of all, seriously? She's Ann fucking Coulter. She's not going to see your little Facebook commentary. And finally, transness is not an insult. I really feel like this should go without saying, but for some reason it really seems like it has been hammered into everyone's cortex that calling a woman transgender is somehow supposed to be offensive. Well there, friends, I have news for you. Trans is beautiful. Period. Say it with me. Trans is beautiful. Transness is beautiful, trans women are beautiful, and transgender female beauty is never inherently lesser when compared to cisgender female beauty. Now, of course, I've seen people pointing out that she has a reason to be offended based on the fact that she's being misrepresented. I guess that's a fair point, except that she's taking this way too far. It's one thing to correct an error, but here we have someone treating the word transgender as though it were inherently slander. Okay, now I feel like why that's a problem should be obvious in and of itself, but just for good measure, let's go a bit further and reverse the situation. Ooh, I can feel the flame wars coming already. Yeah, you know where I'm going. How many times have you seen someone tell a trans woman that she looks cisgender or is cis-passing? Maybe you've even paid someone that compliment yourself. Except, wait, if insinuating transness is an insult to a cisgender woman, why is insinuating cisness a compliment to a transgender person? I mean, it's almost as though we're perpetuating some toxic false idea that trans womanhood is somehow less real than cis womanhood. Okay, I'm gonna drop the sarcasm for a moment. Seriously? This is problematic. It's complicated too though, so let's break it down. Transness is very broad and not subject to any kind of gender binary. Sorry, but your gender binary is a false idea. It doesn't exist. And the validity of a trans person's gender is never based on our bodies, period. That being said, there are still very many transgender individuals, like this girl, who suffer from what could essentially be thought of as epic level gender dysphoria. Basically, to my psyche, nothing about my body that came about as a consequence of my genitals or the hormones they produce and the effects that that had on me makes any sense to the part of my brain that processes gender and how it relates to my sex and my body. Now, in my case, we aren't just talking about what's between my legs. We are talking about every single thing that would conceivably be different if I had been born with a vagina and a uterus and ovaries and had an estrogen-dominated puberty. This might be TMI, but I even get upset that I'll never have a menstrual cycle. So obviously, that carries over to every feature of my face or body that someone would try to use to clock me as being trans. Now, society didn't do that to me. It's just the way my brain is wired. You could think of it, I guess, as like maybe buying a Firebird over the internet and then ending up with a Mustang being shipped into your driveway with a Firebird's owner's manual. It's still a sports car, just definitely not the one you were expecting. And that owner's manual just isn't ever going to be able to make any sense out of that vehicle or its parts or how to make it work. All the same, over time and with appropriate hormone replacement therapy, I've learned to accept my transness as part of my beauty and love my appearance more and more. This is the way whatever powers or not of the universe made me, and I'm gorgeous. Are there still things that my dysphoria has me wanting to change? Absolutely. But it's never going to make me any more beautiful, just more comfortable in my own skin. And when it comes down to it, the way I think of it, even if I somehow miraculously manage to afford all those procedures I want, even afterwards, I will never look like a cisgender woman because I will not be a cisgender woman. Bear with me on this one, because yes, it is entirely possible to have a transgender woman whose appearance is indistinguishable from a cisgender woman. And yes, you could totally say that that means she is cis-passing or looks like a cisgender woman. I'm intentionally being overly literal for the sake of proving a point. I will always look like a trans woman because I am a trans woman. Therefore, I am what a trans woman looks like. I look like Delia Melody. Delia Melody is a trans woman. I look like a trans woman, specifically one named Delia Melody, and nothing will ever change that. Even if I was visually indistinguishable from, I don't know, Eva Mendes, I would not look like Eva Mendes because I would still be Delia Melody, and my appearance would be what Delia Melody looks like. I hope you've got this at this point because Delia is seriously getting tired of speaking about herself in the third person for the sake of this analogy. So I'll never look like a cisgender woman because I'll never be a cisgender woman, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm beautiful, I'm gorgeous, I'm cute, I'm sexy, and most importantly, I'm just as much of a real woman as any cisgender woman is, and my beauty is just as real and valid also. And if you found my little semantics argument pointless or too literal or something, bear with me because I'm about to rip you a new one. Birth genitals aside, there is absolutely no physical bodily feature which can reliably be used to distinguish a cisgender woman from a transgender woman. Forget index to ring finger ratios and Adam's apples and all that other crap, it's bull. I have personally known several vagina-owning designated female at birth women who fail those tests. And in case you're wondering how I know, it's because these women have conceived, carried, and given birth to their own children. Unfortunately, since there's no way for us to have ovaries or eggs or a uterus, carrying children is not something that we as trans women are currently capable of doing. Cis women and trans men pretty much have a monopoly on that particular superpower for the moment. So just to crush any remaining arguments you may have about looking trans or cis, your supposed tells are bullshit. I've known more than enough cisgender women who get mistaken for being trans all the time. And it goes so far beyond that. There are cis women with brow ridges, facial hair, completely flat chests, square jawlines, broad shoulders, you name it. Like, any facial or body feature you can think of and want to say is trans exclusive, aside from genitals, you can find in cisgender women as well. Obviously, there are bell curves leaning one way or the other with certain features trending as more or less likely, but there is significant enough overlap that really saying any woman looks particularly cisgender or transgender as though it were something that was even remotely quantifiable is a joke. And I mean, personally, anytime someone tells me that I'm cis-passing or don't look trans or they'd never be able to tell, it really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I get misgendered constantly no matter how I present. So that tells me that people are indeed constantly assuming my transness. And that in turn tells me that someone is lying to me in order to try to pay me a compliment. And it's not a compliment, it's completely backhanded. It positions cisness as some golden standard of womanhood for trans women to have to aspire to. It insinuates that cis women are more real, and that's a problem. That's a huge problem. It's like when Caitlyn Jenner came out and people were going, "Oh my god, she's prettier than Chris," as though it was somehow surprising that a transgender woman could possibly be more attractive than a cisgender woman. Newsflash, it happens all the time, and it has absolutely nothing to do with how trans we do or don't supposedly look. And it creates issues. We end up with transgender women blaming the oppression they face on their own transness, or at the very least, on not being cis-passing enough, instead of blaming the institutionalized transphobia that's actually responsible. And as long as we keep blaming ourselves and our transness for the problems instead of holding the system that creates the problems responsible, we are never going to fix those problems. If you're a transgender woman, you should never be made to feel that you should have to apologize for your transness or fix it as though it were some kind of defect. Celebrate it. Be proud. You are wonderful and amazing and beautiful. You are your own standard of womanhood, and you are more than equal to every other woman on Earth. Do whatever you want with your own body for your own happiness and well-being, but never let anyone make you feel like you owe it to them to validate your womanhood for them by changing yourself. And regardless of whether you're trans or not, for the sake of all that is good and wholesome, stop throwing transness around as an insult and stop using cisness as a compliment. There's no reason for it at all. You want to compliment a trans woman on her appearance? That's great, that's fine. But you're completely capable of doing it without having to make any comparison to any cisgender woman whatsoever. And if you're just trying to give us validation that you consider us to be just as real as any other woman, it really is as simple as just treating us the same way you would treat any other woman. You don't have to verbally remind us, trust me. It's only going to prove that you do actually, in fact, see us differently. I mean, if you've fallen into this little trans misogynistic trap before, it's okay. It's not your fault. I'm sure you didn't intend it. I get really worked up talking about issues that come from transphobia and trans misogyny, even if they're casual and unintended things, because they can still hurt and really do have huge impacts upon the transgender community. But we all perpetuate these things at some time or another without meaning to. It's honestly to be expected, because right now there's really no universal education going on about this, which is why it's our job as a community to help educate everyone, to help reach a place where everyone will be able to see that we're just like them. If you've learned something today and you want to help, you can do so by sharing and subscribing or becoming a patron on patreon.com/DeliaMelody. And on that note, I want to give a huge shout out to my existing patrons, because you guys are what makes this channel possible. Thank you. As always, thank you so very much for watching, and until next time, be yourself.